Welcome to another episode of Real Talk on Racism. I'm Russ Terry, your host for today's episode. We have a great guest lined up once again, so let's get right into it. Selaedin Maksut is the Executive Director of the Council on American-Islamic Relations in New Jersey. Salah, welcome to Real Talk on Racism.
Thank you so much for having me, Russ.
You're so welcome. All right, so the Council on American-Islamic Relations, or CARE, the mission is to protect and empower American Muslim civil liberties. So what are some examples of discrimination or violations of civil rights that American Muslims deal with?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Russ. I'm really happy to be here and have a conversation with you about this topic, so I'm looking forward to it. The topic on discrimination against Muslims, I mean, we can talk about institutional racism and policies that have inflicted the community, everything from, Trump's Muslim ban to the watch list case that prohibits some Muslims from flying and traveling, to other, initiatives that launched, spying into the community, whether it's the NYPD, very famously here in New Jersey, and their activities in local mosques and sending informants, and all sorts of, activities in this way. But also, there is discrimination as it relates to harassment or intimidation. So it's hate crimes, employment discrimination, and these sorts of things, unfortunately, we do see at our office at CARE. And still to this day, 20 years after 9/11, it continues on. But,
That's a lot.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So what is it like for American Muslims to have to deal with all these different examples of institutional and individual racism, discrimination, harassment, etc.?
I mean, at the end of the day, we all know that the Constitution is on our side, right? And the Constitution is there to protect all of our civil rights and our civil liberties. So, we're optimistic in these founding documents of this nation. And as Americans, whether it's we're Muslim, Jewish, whatever background we might be coming from, any racial, religious, sexual background, we all have those rights, right? And, that is what keeps us fighting and keeps us going. So we look to the Constitution in all of our legal battles, whether it's taking it to the courts or we're just having a discussion in the media about issues that are inflicting the community. We always turn to our Constitution to kind of root us in the conversation. But yeah.
So what's a key line in the Constitution that helps to protect American Muslims?
Yeah, I mean, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, these sorts of things. For example, we have mosques that, find difficulty in being established in various towns. Even here in New Jersey, I can probably list 4 or 5 different mosques that have found difficulty because various zoning boards have, produced hurdles and obstacles throwing it in their way. And various, town members, not being very welcoming of their new Muslim neighbors. So in this case, we know the Constitution allows for, freedom of worship and equal opportunity for all houses of worship to be established, all people to worship freely without unjust infliction or difficulty. But,
it's interesting because in the work that I do, helping companies and individuals embrace and understand diversity and inclusion and anti-racism, I wish more people would look at what they have in common as opposed to what the differences are. You know, a lot of people are passionate about religion, and it may be different religions, but my hope is that people look at what they have in common, not that the differences that they have.
Absolutely.
Got it. All right, so how about you personally? What are examples of discrimination or harassment that you've had to face?
No, that's a great question. Because I don't, quote unquote, look Muslim, which, doesn't make sense, right? Because you cannot look like a Muslim. What does that mean, right? Do I look Arab, South Asian, etc.? I'm Turkish, so white, right? So I would face unique situations where, for example, there are times when I'm talking to someone who doesn't know I'm Muslim, right? And we're talking about politics and religion. And I never forget this one incident when I was at an undergrad, as a junior, and I was talking to one individual about politics. And he went on and on about the Middle East. And he started talking about Muslims, saying, the religion of Islam is violent. Muslims, we can't trust them. You have to be careful. They are prone to lying and, all these sorts of things. And I'm like, really? Listening to him talk, not saying anything, just listening. And I thought, that's really interesting because I'm actually Muslim. And he was in shock. His face turned white, and he didn't know what to say. He began stumbling on his own words. And he's like, oh, well, I didn't mean it that way. Or not all Muslims are like this. And I'm like, yeah, well, you clearly don't understand. The community or the faith. But yeah, these sorts of situations I do find myself in frequently. But that pales into comparison to some of the things that, family and friends have experienced. Most often our office gets calls from women who wear a headscarf, for example, because they are most visibly Muslim, right? And whether it's physical or verbal assaults, these things, they still happen to this day. My grandmother, unfortunately, was a victim of that. While shopping once, but yeah.
And your grandmother's how old?
She's now almost 70. The incident happened about 10 years ago, but she was physically assaulted while shopping at a Macy's.
A 60-year-old woman?
Yeah, at the time, yeah.
Someone would assault a 60-year-old woman?
And told her to go back to her country. And she said, you don't speak English, but my grandma speaks 7 different languages, including English, very well.
At Macy's?
At a Macy's, yep.
Oh.
And here in Jersey. I know.
Which, it just makes me sick to hear stories like this. And, I'm grateful to you for sharing because hopefully people watching that didn't know things like this have been happening will be more accepting of Muslims and will do what they can to be more inclusive of Muslims as opposed to, the zoning boards making it harder and the subtle or not so subtle discrimination that seems to be absolutely happening.
Right.
Number one, in terms of that situation that happened with you and the person in undergrad.
Yeah.
And you went to NYU, so a diverse place theoretically in a diverse city theoretically.
Right.
I want to give you a lot of credit for addressing the situation in the moment with grace. That's something that is or can be hard to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just thinking, how do I respond to this? At one point, I was like, maybe I just shouldn't tell him. Maybe I should just, walk away out of the frustration. But yeah, it was.
And what are the emotions that you have in that moment?
And just almost like confusion, like, why do people think or feel this way? And it's tough. And it's, of course, builds into frustration and anger. But you can't let yourself get caught up in that. And you have to engage them sincerely, I think, and kind of open up an opportunity for them to learn. So I think that's why, my response was so important, that I didn't just outlash and just, that would not have helped the situation. But yeah.
And this is one of the things we've talked about in a lot of the episodes because it's almost like people of color, whether Muslim, Black, Latino, Asian, Pacific Islander, etc., have this extra burden to carry around with them. Like not only the regular stresses of life and the pandemic and work and whatever, but then combating the discrimination that people in your community face all the time.
It's so true. It's exhausting, but that's true.
And exhausting was literally the word I was just going to use, and I'm not even the one exhausted, but I can tell from having these stories over and over and over again that people who experience this discrimination, it's absolutely valid to feel exhausted.
Yeah.
All right, so one of the things we try to do on the show is talk about solutions and what people watching can do to learn. So what recommendations do you have for, let's say, somebody who is not Muslim watching this episode who wants to do something?
No, that's a great question, I think. And there are so many different things we can do. Of course, it always starts with education, right? And that's always the first thing. But I think what we see, a lot of research shows that, people who harbor hatred against Muslims are typically people who don't know a Muslim, right? And if you just befriend a Muslim, whether it's someone at work or school, your neighbor, wherever, through that friendship and that connection that you build with them, that typically can dispel a lot of the ignorance or the misunderstandings that you have of the faith. So just being open to, making a Muslim friend, right? And just having conversations with people and ask questions. Questions are okay. Ask it in a polite and respectful manner, and hopefully the person you're dealing with, can help you in that conversation and that journey to learn. But yeah.
It's interesting that you say that. So I do have some Muslim friends.
Awesome.
One of my best friends is Muslim. So some years he's missed my birthday because it came during Ramadan.
Oh, okay.
And he's done a great job educating me on Ramadan and things to talk about and not talk about during Ramadan. It's stuff that best friends talk about.
Right.
And my friend and yoga teacher Umit is also Muslim.
Awesome.
And when he comes over to my home to do yoga, and I coach him also. He actually asks for a quiet place to pray while he's over my house because he prays 6 or 7 times a day. So giving him that space to do that is in both examples and both friends, I feel like I've enhanced my cultural competence by being friends with them, interacting with them, treating them like I would treat any friend, learning more about them. And I personally like learning about other cultures. It's number one, just intellectually stimulating and interesting, but also I feel like we as a society should want to learn about other cultures.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you mentioned, in addition to befriending a Muslim, education. So what recommendation do you have for people to educate themselves, to learn?
Yeah. In New Jersey, we're lucky because, there are so many mosques throughout the state, right? I was looking at a map the other day, and there's about 150 of them, I think, that we know of. So go visit one, right? And if you look at the Muslim community, they're very welcoming. Hospitality is like front and center of the community. And you may have experienced that with some of your Muslim friends, right? It's always welcoming people and having them into the home, having them at the mosque, talking over a meal. So find a local mosque, knock on their door, say, hey, do you guys have any events I can attend, or anything of the sort? Just have proactive kind of mindset, and see if you can, pay a visit. But yeah.
I don't know if you can tell, my mouth is ajar.
Oh.
I'm at a loss for words. No, because number one, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Number two, I didn't realize that somebody who isn't Muslim can go to a mosque.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I've seen so many situations where, people from all walks of faith, attend the mosque, whether it's an open house situation or it's they just want to come see. People are interested. They're curious, right? So what better way than to interact with the house of worship, the community center? But yeah.
Wow, and I would imagine, I live in Jersey City, which is either first or second in terms of most diverse cities in the entire country.
Right.
So I would imagine there are mosques in Jersey City. Well, I'm putting it out into the universe. Maybe we can go to a mosque together sometime.
Yes, we should actually.
All right, we'll plan that after we get off the air. But thank you. I really appreciate that. That's really awesome. Yeah. All right, so we're here today with Selaedin Maksut. He's the Executive Director of the Council on American-Islamic Relations, or CARE, here in New Jersey. So what are some actions you are taking through your role with CARE on the front lines to combat discrimination against Muslims?
Okay, so it's a great question, and I think, the past 2 decades, since 9/11, the Muslim community has really been kind of reactive. So it's responding to the hate crimes, kind of responding to the policies and the foreign affairs and the difficulties that our community has faced. So it's a lot of just reacting. We're trying to change our approach to be more proactive instead of just responding to what's happening to us, right? So we've launched a few initiatives that are proactive measures to combat Islamophobia and anti-Muslim sentiment. And there are 2 of them, and I'm honestly obsessed with them because I love the mission, right? And the first is launching what we are calling a Muslim studies curriculum to be adopted in public schools. So yeah, it's a very exciting initiative, and I'm happy to say that we do have one school district in New Jersey that has committed to adopting the curriculum in their K through 12 public schools. I can't share the name just yet because we're still working on it, but everything is there. It's in the works, and we're hoping to roll it out in the next couple of years in various phases in pilot programming. But that's one initiative that we have, the curriculum project, where it'll teach young students and young Americans about the history of Islam, Muslim culture, and the contributions we've had to society. And it'll touch upon various fields like mathematics, algebra, for example. Was invented by Muslims, right? Algebra is an Arabic word. And these small things that people don't know about, right? The impact Muslims have had on science, and social studies, history, philosophy, all sorts of things, right? Because we want to change the way we perceive Muslims and Islam. Oftentimes we think terrorism, violence, oppression, these sorts of things. Common words like jihad are thrown around, holy war. There's more to the religion than what the media might present, right? So we want to provide a more positive, optimistic, and true to the history kind of approach to the community. But yeah.
Wow, balanced view, which I like.
Yep.
And people aren't born racist.
Right.
So getting them while they're young, if
Exactly.
you will, teaching young Americans.
Exactly.
I want to give 5 gold stars to this school district. I don't know if you saw my mouth open because I was going to ask which one. I'm going to give them a shout out, but when you can tell me, you will.
Definitely, yes.
But I give you a lot of credit in that school. You are a visionary, in case I haven't said that yet. And as I've told you, I'm very impressed by you and the work that you're doing. But this school district is a visionary too, to be the first in the entire state.
Yep.
And
Yep.
hopefully first of many.
Yep.
And by the way, I was really good at algebra, so that's so cool. I feel a special connection.
There you
now.
go.
I was on mathletes in high school.
Oh,
Humble
okay.
brag, you
There
know.
you go.
All right. Again, for people watching today. Oh, actually, I want to go back. So you said 2 proactive things.
Oh, yeah.
So first the curriculum, and what was the second?
The other one is training high school students to be ambassadors in their own community. So giving them the tools to advocate for themselves, right? To advocate for the Eid holiday. I grew up where the Muslim holiday Eid was never. We didn't take it off. The school was not closed for Eid, right? So we had to take off on our own, and we would miss school and miss work, and it would become a difficulty, right? So we're trying to train the youth to be ambassadors in their own schools to advocate for these issues, so that they can have the Eid holiday off, they can have halal food like kosher food, etc., in the cafeterias. Maybe they can have a prayer space in their schools. These sorts of things. But yeah.
Wow. So Eid is spelled E-I-D,
Yeah.
right? And what is it and when?
So there are 2. There's one that follows after the month of Ramadan. So it's the first day of the next month. Ramadan ends and then it's Eid. And then there's a second one, which is approximately 2 months after that Eid. And that second one celebrates the sacrifice of Abraham and his son Ishmael. But yeah, it's the story of Abraham and Ishmael. Yeah.
Got it. And Eid is, there's like a big meal
Yes.
that everybody comes to because
Yep.
you can eat before dusk.
Yes.
On Eid is like the first day in the month, in a month that you can eat before dusk.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm learning some things.
Yeah.
And there's actually this great movie that a friend of mine was in called Breaking Fast.
Okay.
And part of the plot is having that first big meal. So shout out to him. I'll tell him that I gave him a shout out during the show.
There we go.
Okay, so if people watching know a high school student who's interested in potentially becoming an ambassador, what's the best way for them to reach CARE New Jersey?
Yeah, so they can go to our website, care-nj.org, and they can send us a message on the platform there. And if they're interested in participating, becoming an ambassador, we'll basically train them, give them the tools, put them in a cohort, find the school district that they're located in, and yeah.
Amazing. And we have some viewers, not just from Jersey, but from other places. And there are a bunch of CAREs, not just in Jersey, but other chapters around the country.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so you heard what Salah said, cair-nj.org if you or someone you know wants to be an ambassador for the program. Sounds amazing. All right, so separate but interesting topic. As we've discussed, he's the executive director of this nonprofit. I'm guessing you're mid-20s-ish or so.
27 now.
Okay, 27, mid to late. So, congratulations
Thank
on
you.
having so much success and running a nonprofit at such a young age. You obviously went to the Ivy Leagues, masters from Columbia. So how have you been able to accomplish so much at such a young age?
The other day I saw on social media a comment that said something to the effect of, there's no such thing as being self-made. There is so much that goes into, the behind the scenes and who I am as a person, right? And before anything else, it's always thanks be to God, right? For everything that we have, and we're thankful for that and for what He's been able to give us. But then my parents, right? I mean, they're my inspiration, and my grandparents especially, because they were the ones that moved to America. They were the immigrants, both my mom and dad's side. And watching them grow up and, watching me as growing up, watching them and create businesses and, be involved in the community and being leaders in their own right, I think was a huge inspiration for me. So a lot of what I have today is thanks to their hard work. But yeah.
I'm a big fan of legacy.
Yeah.
And, their legacy lives on through you and all the amazing work that you're doing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. I mentioned Ramadan a few minutes ago. I want to go back to that. During those 30 days when Muslims are fasting, can't eat during daylight hours, often have to work while navigating Ramadan, which can be challenging. It's light out, when Ramadan's over the summer, obviously it's light out very long. I checked this year and Ramadan starts on April 2nd. But what are good best practices for someone who isn't Muslim, doesn't practice Ramadan, to support those who are fasting and going through Ramadan?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So Ramadan is, it's also like, it's time where we observe fast, so we don't engage in eating or drinking, but we also don't engage in other activities, right? We try to be the best version of ourselves, right? So it's, being extra charitable, being extra kind, being diligent, at work, and continuing to uphold, good ties with family, and just trying to get to be the best version of ourselves. So it's a lot is involved, and of course the days can be long, as you mentioned, in the summertime, and now it's getting closer and closer to the winter because it changes every year. So the days are a little shorter, so we're looking forward to that. But ways to be of support to your Muslim friends. I mean, first and foremost, be considerate, around them, right? If they're not having lunch, maybe you shouldn't be eating in front of them, right? You shouldn't be drinking in front of them. But ask them, what are they comfortable with, right? Everyone's different, so they have their own, different ideas and feelings and thoughts about it. But asking questions, have a conversation, see what are they doing that night. Maybe you can join them in their meal to break the fast, and what we call iftar. And if you're interested in participating in that kind of ceremony with them. But yeah.
Well, you've given me lots of great ideas, which I think is really awesome. So thank you for that. I'm going to break a fast with somebody. I'm going to go to a mosque for the first time. Lots of exciting stuff coming down the pike. All right, so we always like sharing good news here at Real Talk on Racism, and I see that back in November, Shama Hyder became the first Muslim to win election to the New Jersey state legislature. What's this mean to and for the Muslim community here in the Garden State?
So more good news on top of that. So we have Shama Hyder, and we also have Dr. Sadaf Jaffer, who actually, they both won simultaneously, like in the same election. So they're now both in the assembly. Yeah, so we have two Muslim women in New Jersey Assembly. So the first ones to serve in New Jersey State House. And we're very excited, for obvious reasons, right? Representation is very important. First and foremost, representation opens up so many doors for people, right? Young Muslims that can see older Muslim community leaders, paving the way and being pioneers is essential. So we're happy in that front. And two, it helps with policy issues, right? So now we have someone that can help work and be a voice for our community in the assembly, and advocate for our concerns and advocate for the issues that we're considering and we're working on. So it's great to see them be there and be community leaders. We have Shama is in Bergen County. And I believe Sadaf Jaffer, she is in I'm forgetting the district actually, but she's from Princeton, by the way.
Oh.
Yeah, she teaches at Princeton University.
Amazing. Maybe her or people she knows will be watching this episode.
Yeah.
Excellent. Love it. You mentioned policy issues. We have about 2 minutes left. So what is one quick policy thing that CARE is working on?
Great question. So there's a couple of things. Right now, we're trying to work on a Muslim Awareness and Appreciation Month to be adopted in Jersey. So we're kind of following the footsteps of California. So California already has it passed. They were the first, and I believe the only state in the nation that has it. So we're hoping to become the second state in the nation to observe this month. But yeah.
Wow.
Along with the curriculum project that I mentioned earlier.
Okay, and when does California hold Muslim Awareness
I
Month?
believe they hosted in August. Yeah.
Okay.
So we might be doing it in August as well, but we'll see.
Please keep me posted on
Yes.
that too. I know you have lots of to-do items from our show today. I'm giving you lots of homework, but thank you, because that'd be something that I would want to share, that this Muslim Awareness Month hopefully becomes a reality here in New Jersey. Excellent. All right. What did we not talk about today that in our last 30 to 60 seconds here you want to share with our viewers?
That the Muslim community is so diverse, right? You know, Muslims, they span from Morocco to Malaysia, right? From the Balkans to all the way down to Yemen, right? And that community, that global community, is also here in Jersey, right? And you know, from the south to north, central, if you believe Central exists. You know, we're all throughout the state. So come meet your Muslim neighbor and reach out, you know, break bread, learn about, you know, the religion, the culture, the history, yeah.
Excellent. Well, Selaedin Maksut is amazing. Thank you so much for being here today on Real Talk on Racism. It was a pleasure hearing all your amazing insights.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. All right, thank you everybody for watching. I'm Russ Terry. We're always grateful to you, our viewers also, and we'll see you next time.